Nellie has been writing Lancashire dialect verse for the last 12 years, which includes 2 books, which have been very successful, and if anybody wants any, there's one on sale tonight. Broadcasts on local radio, and we have had the pleasure at Farmer Social Circle of her entertainment for the past 8 years. Let's give her a great welcome, Nellie.
How do? Oh, come on, I can do better than that. How do? Right, I thought pretty pie had stuck thee up. Haven't you had a good supper, eh? Ah, the heck, I'm saving my apple pie for later. Right, well, some of you know me, some of you don't. Them as don't know me, well, I hope you'll like me when you hear me. And I'm going to start with the very first poem I ever wrote. And this one is called Lucky Soot. Here we're getting some soot up our chimney. It kept falling down all at Matt. It flew up on rack onto it where shin. It were even hot cheer where I sat. I were getting right fed up with first work. Now tear some clean the moor. As fast as I spit and polished, down it had come all over flour. We had a green budgie called Joey. We geet him a year or 2 back, but we're thinking of calling him Sooty. He's not green no more, he's all black. Chimney sweep paid us a visit to see if there were out he could do. He'd not but been there a few minutes before he get brush fast up flue. He gave a push, then he gave a poo, then he get chimney breast a few knocks. All at once down it come, and we it were an out tin box. It were full of out golden sovereigns. We counted them out off flour. I were first surprised, I can tell that they were £100 a moor. Seems they belonged to me Grandad. A bit of a miser, I'm told. He'd perkland his cell to save that tin box full of out gold. Aye, but he wasn't all as a miser. Me mam did say he were kind. He just couldn't take knockers he geet when Gran went and left him behind. And I think his mind were wandering in years after Grandma had gone, for him to hide all them sovereigns and for me to find later on. Well, I'm buying a gas fire with money. There'll be no more ashes for bin. But just think, but for soot up yon chimney, we might ne'er have found Grandad's old tin. Woman across road from me bought a budgie last week, and her says to her husband when he gave it one, "It's a good talker this." Fella at shop said it's come off a talker and it'll talk its head off. He said, "Right, it's just what we want, that." 2 days later I goes back to the shop. I said, "Hey, that budgie that sold me, it's not even whistled." He said, "You mean it's not running up its ladder?" And whistling. She says, "What ladder?" He said, "It needs a ladder, babe, a ladder." I said, "Well, I'll have a ladder then." So I get a ladder and put it in cage. 2 days later I goes back and said, "It's still not doing out, it's not even running up ladder, it's doing nothing, not a squeak." He said, "It's not running up its ladder and ringing its bell." She says, "What bell?" He says, "He wants a bell." So she bought a bell and back home I went with bell. I says to her husband, "It'll talk now." 2 days later I was back, I said, "It's not talking, it's doing nothing, not even whistling." He said, "It's not running up its ladder, ringing its bell and looking through its mirror." I says, "What mirror?" He said, "Does it not get in the mirror?" I says, "No." He says, "Bird a mirror, it'll talk, so bird in mirror, it'll even swear." She says, "Will it?" He says, "Aye." Anyway, yesterday I went back to the shop. I said, "That budgie that's over me's dead." He says, "Dead? What do you mean? Did he not talk?" She says, "Oh, aye." He looked at me and it says, "Do they not sell any bloody seed at that shop?" My Auntie Lil and her husband, you know, they're very hard of hearing. And they went for an Eatin Eawt last week to Conservative Club. And while they sat there, waiter comes round and the uncle says to him, "Who's on tonight?" He says, "It's country and western." So his wife says to him, "Who did he say?" He says, "It's somebody for Preston." She said, "Charlton Heston, I didn't know he could sing." Talking a Lancashire dialect, little lad come back off his holidays and went to school, and teacher says to him, "Have you had a nice holiday, Johnny?" He said, "I miss it were right gradely." She said, "It were what?" He said, "It were gradely." She said, "There's no such word as gradely." He said, "Yeah, there is. My dad says it and my Grandad all the time." She said, "There's no such word as gradely. Now take the dictionary, look through it, and when you've found the word gradely, put your hand up." He says, "Right." So he goes to the back of class and he's thumbing through paper. All of a sudden, she says, "Have you found it yet?" He says, "No, it's not a gradely dictionary, this." Right, well, next dialect verse comes from my next door neighbour having more money than me, you see. And I've called it Weel Off. Hey, they said there's no to queer as folk, by go the Eatin Eawt. There's him and her next door to me, they're driving me up war. It started when his father died and left him all his brass. They've painted front door oil blue and they've gone all upper class. Now when I say they're talking posh, they'll know just what I mean. They've pot mixed up with China and dropped H's in between. Who doesn't deal at corner shop, but has it sent for at 10? But I recall when times were bad at all, things boot down. And his push bike's gone to Ragmanners comes round with horse and cart. They've a Ford Grandad out at front and has polished every part. Oh, now it's nice for folk get on, I know, but they really beat the band. Her sits in care like flipping queen and does all but wave her hand. And as one of them fancy ways she's nares does all wants it too. But I think as mixed away she up, there's not on it front door turned blue. And they go abroad for their holidays, not Blackpool like rest on us. They flash by you, the Granada, while I'm still queuing for buzz. They went Mallorca last year to find a bit of sun, but I don't think they had much fun. Seems they'd suffered with sunstroke. Spent all the time being sick. Well, they're just not used to all that sun. It's no wonder they brunt so quick. He took his cine camera, fanciest thing I've seen. But I think he put film in wrong road round, they were upside down off screen. We still have a chat to at garden fence, at least her talks to me. Going on the vet always gate. Latest things o'clock as Brew's tea. And now we're in common market, I think has gone off her head. They keep using foreign phrases, I can't tell a word is said. I hear her axe Air Coleman as I clean the windows at back. Are these booze trays bags, Monsieur? He said, aye, I'll a car to cul-de-sac. So, I talked to Mum about it when we went to bed last night. He said, how about a bit of l'amour? So I said, trays bon. Then all right. But I can keep a creature comforts and thirst we ought mod con. I'm satisfied with what I've got. Aye, including my own mum. Little lad next door to us who he does swear. His mother said, I'll cure you with that yet, Johnny. He said, I'll not swear again, mum. She said, well, think on you don't, because if you do, I'm going to rattle your legs and put you to bed. He said, I'll not swear, mum, I'll be a good boy. She said, right. Come Saturday, got him ready to go to his little friend's birthday party. Give him his present, he looked proper bonny. She said, no, I've told Mrs. Jones, if you swear, she's to send you home straight away, so I'll know. He said, I'll not swear, mum, honest. So she sees him off down path, waves at him going up street, and he settles down with woman's own hot couch. All of a sudden her ears gate go. Looks through the window, he's coming back up path. She's out, right. She dragged him in, took his trousers down and paddled him, put it bed. And as he's going out at the bedroom door, I said, what did you say this time? He said, I didn't say anything. Bloody party's not till tomorrow. little girl went to her grandma and she says, Grandma, how old are you? He looked, she says, I don't know, I forgot. She said, you don't know how old you are, Grandma? She said, no, love, I forgot. So after a minute, little girl said, I know. She said, look in your knickers, it says 6 years old in mine. Little girl come home from school and I says to her mother, Mum, I've come top at class. She said, here you have your love, I am glad. She said, no, it's paid off, and it's stopping at home and swatting when they were all riding round on the bikes. She said, oh, I am glad I've come up top at class. She says, go at front and tell your grandma. She sat in front. So I goes in front and there's grandma's reading a big Bible. So I comes out again and the man says, have you not told your grandma? She said, no, I didn't like this to her, but I think she's swatting for a final. This next one is one that I wrote for my little goddaughter when her older sister was getting married. Now for this you've got to imagine I'm 11 years old. Not hard, is it? I mean, I'm in my late 20s, so... Anyway, this is one I wrote, and it's just called The Wedding. Hey, I'm going to be a bridesmaid, 'cause her Susan's getting wed. I have to wear a long frock and some flowers on my head. Dad says I'm such a tomboy, always wearing pants. So for a change I'm a be a lass and impress all my uncles and aunts. My mum's tried on dozens of outfits, with hats both big and small. And my dad keeps writing on paper how much it'll cost for it all. He says we ought brass this forking out for this here wedding day. They can see now why they say he's giving bride away. But though he grumbles about it, I know he'll pay up and smile. There'll not be a prayer of chattering him when he's taking our Susan down pile. Front parlour covers a gift shop. There's presents for his side and hers. There's bedding and clocks and cooking pots, and at least 6 vases of flowers. But there's one good thing about it now, Susan's off yon shelf. My mum and dad will be gaining a son, but I'll get a room to myself. Woman says to her husband, I hope you know I'm pregnant again. He says, not again, that'll make 13 this time, won't it? She said, yeah, 13, and I want a new pram. He said, well, get one as'll last this time. Two ladies looking through a mail order catalogue, and one of them says to the other, hey, Annie, I could do with some new vests. I says, well, I can get some out at the club. I says, can I? I says, of course I can. I says, how am I go about it? I says, well, what I does, I finds out what I wants and writes it down on a bit of paper. I says, and then what? I says, and then give it to me and I'll send it off for it. I says, right, well, when I've done it, we'll check, see if I've done it right. She said, yeah, of course I will. Anyway, I hands this paper to her friend and I says, Annie, have a look, see if I've done it right. So Annie looks at it and it says, please send some vests as'll fit me. I says, I can't put that. I says, why not? I says, I can't put as'll. I says, it's waddle. During music lesson at school, the teacher was telling the class about Johann Sebastian Bach and how he was a prolific composer, and he fathered 12 children. And he wrote all his compositions while seated at an instrument called the spinet, on which he practised daily. When little lad got home, his mum says to him, what have you been doing at school today, love? He says, we've been learning about Johann Sebastian Bach. She says, well, go on, tell me about him. He says, well, he was a prolific composer, and he fathered 12 children, and he practised every day on the spinster in the attic. There were a woman running Norwich police station last week, and she said, "Quick, officer, I've been raped." He says, "You mean raped?" She says, "No, I don't, there were a bunch of them." Now, the next dialect poem comes from a true experience at our church at Norwich. And it was when we used to have what were called church socials. And I call this church social. We'd getting fed up watching telly. So as it was set to eat, we get ready and went to church social. Bad go, it were a treat. There were quite a few folk gathered there. Yeah, they were a friendly lot. Some were folk I see every day. And old neighbours I'd nearly forgot. We all get talking when we were young and went to village school. Then Vicar get up and told us as pianists couldn't come, he had flu. Well, we honest out as dancing were out, because nobody there could play. So we decided we'd entertain ourselves in our own particular way. So we played a few games for children and some at grown-ups as well. I sat in my chair and watched them, and from kitchen there come a good smell. Prater pie and sloppy peas. That's what we were having tea. It were nearly ready for being served when Dad jumped to his feet. "I'm going to say a monologue," he announced to everyone there. This is it, I thought, and I said a prayer as I sat up edge of my chair. But the Lion and Albert began a good voice. I just hoped he'd remember each line. But he plodded on, and I'm proud to say he belted it out right fine. Then he went on with Magna Carta. Oh, he'd forget it, I thought to myself. But it were all written down on a paper and he glanced at it now and again. So, all in all, we had a good night. And them as says difference, no sense. Because we'd prater pie, tater cakes, buttered scones and hot lots for 40 pence. It's a shame there were no music to dance to. Now that really would have been grand. But Vicar come up with a good idea, in which I think God took a hand. It seemed Vicar could play to music, so seeing him book up piano lid, we were asked to take partners for last waltz, and not wanting to upset him, we did. Well, tune rang out loud and clear as we all took to the floor. The day thou gave us, Lord, has ended. It waltz time, 5, 3, 4. I don't know why, but as we danced, we all began singing each line. It was just like church on Sunday, only we were lively like being waltz time. It were a fitting end to the evening, if unusual in its way. We all of us enjoyed it, and we'd not but 40 pence to pay. So if you are fed up watching telly and there's not much brass to spare, why not join us at church social? We're one big happy family there. There was a vicar who were retiring, and they sent him a curate, you see, to take over. And the curate had never done a sermon before. So the vicar would give him 1 or 2 tips. He said, "Now what I usually do," he said, "I usually have a glass of water on the pulpit." He said, "But seeing it's your first time, I think you could get away with a glass of gin." Oh, he said, "Are you sure, vicar?" He said, "I'm positive." He said, "I did when I first started." He said, "Gives you that little bit of courage. Don't make a habit of it," he said, "but first time, yes." Anyway, he said, "What are you thinking of doing this Sunday?" He said, "Well, I was thinking of David and Goliath." He said, "It's very popular." He said, "Yes, that's a very good one, that." Anyway, Sunday comes round and the curate gets up and he's got this glass of pulpit, and every now and then he has a sup until it's all gone. At the end of the sermon, he stood at the door shaking hands with everybody. And he says to the vicar, "How did I do?" He said, "You did very well, son." He said, "But do try and remember, David slew Goliath, he didn't knock his bloody head off." There were a family going home from church, mother, father, teenage daughter and little 6-year-old lad skipping on up front. Mother says, I didn't know one of them tunes they played today. Father said, nice to have a stiff-necked man sat in a draft. Daughter said, wouldn't you think they'd jazz it up a bit with guitars and drums instead of flipping organ? A little lad skipping on a front turn round. He says, well, I didn't think it were a bad show for a penny. This next one is This is one of my favourites. It isn't really in dialect, but it's a true occurrence that happened with a little girl, and I've called it Just For You. It all began by getting up late. We got in each other's way. I burnt the toast and I broke a cup. Mishaps followed suit all day. The fire was being awkward, the washer was acting queer. I had to get mince off the butcher, his lamb chops were too dear. I were mixing a cake in the kitchen when there come a knock on the door. I grumbled and muttered under my breath, then dropped an egg on the floor. Furious I went to answer that knock, my blood pressure starting to rise. Someone would get the rough edge of my tongue, but oh, what a lovely surprise. Little Julie, 3 years old, stood there, her blue eyes shining. Her very presence brought the peace for which my mind was pining. A small grubby hand was thrust forward, and a voice that was childish but true said, "I love you, Auntie Nellie, and I've brought this just for you." I took the gift so fondly given and kissed her upturned face. It was as if a ray of sunshine was spreading through the place. There are many flowers in God's garden, and the dandelion grows wild, but for me it holds a special beauty when presented by a child. Just one more now, and then I'm going to sing for you, so if anybody wants to leave now. This one was one that was written after me and Third Mum went for a meal in a posh restaurant. And I call this one Eatin Eawt. Third Mum's won the bobber too, so he took me out last night. We went to a right posh restaurant for a drink and a bite to eat. We'd only ever sampled fish suppers for a corner shop, so I were really looking forward to some steak or a nice pork chop. But that ought to bear to fancy place. We stuck out like sore thumbs. Third Mum shoved his cap in his pocket, and I wished us we'd ne'er come. Art waiters fab at penguins, and they spoke all BBC. They were right for it when I asked them for a nice hot pot of tea. And when I looked at menu, well, I could make no sense on it. For one thing, it were foreign, and room were that badly lit. But Third Mum took it off me, he said, "I'll sort out what we'll have." And then he got up for a table and disappeared it laugh. Meanwhile, one of them penguins hovered, poised with pencil and pad. But Third Mum returned and smiling, he said, "Nah, I'm ready, old lad. We'll have horses doofers, scampi, cocky ban, and creep Suzette." Well, he rounded off like man of born, I've not guitar it yet. Seems he'd met this chap at Lavey, and he told him what to choose. So he pretended no eye about it, he felt he couldn't lose. Now while we waited we had champagne, 'cause it were a thing to do, you see. But our bubbles didn't go up my nose. It was now like a nice cup of tea. We were nearly drunk when Mill arrived with such a time to wait. Then Third Mum had to strike a litre for it on his plate. And I could see he weren't keen on it, he didn't hate his spill. I didn't enjoy it either, I couldn't stop thinking of bills. 20 quid it cost us, not counting VAT. And even after paying all that when I get a cup of tea. Well, they can keep the fancy restaurants, high and fancy prices too. Next time there's a win on forces, I tell you what we'll do. We'll go somewhere plain and homely, with lights on so we can see. And after I've had steak, pudding and chips, I'll order a nice pot of tea. Now I want you to join me in the second chorus of this. She's a lassie from Lancashire, just a lassie from Lancashire. She's a lassie that I hold dear, oh so dear. Though she dresses in clothes and shawl, she's the prettiest of them all. None could be fairer or rarer than Sarah, my lassie and Lancashire. She's a lassie from Lancashire, just a lassie from Lancashire. She's a lassie that I love you. Oh, she wears suits and clothes and shows. She's the prettiest of them all. None could be fairer or better than Sarah, my lassie from Lancashire.
Come on, little Margaretta.
Right, well, I'm here again for the second half. So, I'm going to tell you about my husband's hobby of brewing his own ale. I don't know if there's any brewers in tonight. I've called this one home brew. Third man's Eatin hobby and he's driving me round bend. He's taken no in my kitchen, he's there for hours on end. There's bottles in my pantry and bottles under the sink. He thinks they're nought but brewing ale, and he's making such a stink. When him and Charlie Pearson get together thick as thieves, they try to perfect a flavour all Mr. Brewers achieve. Of course they have to soak some, whether it's ready or not. Now if it's good they get blind drunk, and then they brew another lot. They seem to be forever weighing up our pros and cons. They ventured into table wine and bought some demijohns. Now all my towels is lost their home in thirring cupboard upstairs. It's same at Molly Pearson's house. They've made a brewery of theirs. It's full of them there demijohns, forever going plop. Aye, but for taste it's just as good as out they'll buy for at shop. I must admit it felt right posh when we sat down to dine. Meal were complimented like with a glass of homemade wine. But now with wine with every meal, whether it's fish or roast. It's very nice with beef and veg, but not with beans on toast. And there's 5 pieces hot jobs are piling up. Whenever I ask about 'em, he says, sit down and have a saw. Now, you'll think I'm daft complaining over all this homemade brew, but when I make his meal tonight, he'll learn a thing or two, 'cause there'll be no wine at table, no glasses will I lay, but they might see milk and sugar, 'cause I'm brewing on his tea. There were 2 Lancashire lads come up at pools and they went down London about a pub. And they'd only been running it for about 3 months. They were losing money hand over fist. So they decided they'd sell up and come back home to Lancashire. And they stood at corner of the street sorting money out, and a little cockney goes past. He says, what you, mate? He said, I do. He says, what you doing? He says, what we doing? We're going home, we can't make this pub pay. He says, what you want round here's a brothel. Go a bomb round here, a brothel. He said, nay lad, we couldn't sell ale, I doubt as we'd have sold broth. There were 4 men stood at a bar at an army reunion dinner. One of them picked up his whiskey, looked at the other 3 and he said, well, I've done very well for myself. He said, I've made brigadier. I'm married now with 3 fine sons. And one of the others said, well, that's funny. He said, since we last met, he said, I've also been made a brigadier. He said, I'm married. He said, I've 2 sons at Eatin and 1 following me in the army. So the third fella says, well, I'll go to the foot of their stairs. He said, I'm also a brigadier and I'm married with 3 sons. So they all looked at 4th little fella for Farnworth. He said, well, this is where coincidence ends. He says, I'm not married. He said, but I've 3 sons and they're all brigadiers. Right, now the next dialect poem is one that was written for my silver wedding, and it's called The Painting. On our silver wedding day we get lots of lovely things like chromium plated tea sets and silver napkin rings. But our son bought us a present as I think's rather rude. It's a painting of a woman standing there at nude. I didn't say out that lad his intentions were quite good, so I kissed him and I thanked him as any mother would. But now I don't know what to do with it. I just hanging on to the wharf. I fear my friends might see it when they come to call. Third man rather likes it. He says it's artistic and refined. But then of course he would say that he has a dirty mind. I hung it onto the bedroom wall. I thought, nah, it's there to seat. But it gets out mum's strange ideas when we went bed at night. I'd have to hang it somewhere. It's something I can't avoid. Lad might think we didn't want his gift, and he could become annoyed. But third man solved my problem. I must admit he's shrewd. He knowed just what to do about yon painting of a nude. He went out and bought some oil paints, and with patience and great care, he painted Lassie a lovely frock and stuck a flower in her hair. And now he's always doing paintings for which I sometimes pause. But don't thee go and get wrong idea, I always wear my clothes. There were a plane coming into land at Manchester Airport, and the pilot said, "Everybody fasten your seatbelts please, we're coming into land now." And without switching his intercom off, he turned to his co-pilot and he said, "The first thing I'm going to have when I land," he said, "is a pint of ice cold lager." He said, "Then I'm going to make passionate love to that red-headed air hostess." Everybody on the plane heard it, and the red-headed air hostess went flying up the gangway with her cheeks as red as her hair. And a little old lady said, "Don't run, love, he's having his lager first." There's another plane cruising at a nice speed, and it came over the intercom, "Everybody can unfasten the seatbelts now as we've taken off. And we're going to let you into a little secret. This is the very first plane of its kind. It is completely computerised. There is no pilot, no co-pilot. But don't worry, because nothing will go wrong. Go wrong, go wrong, go wrong." This next one, this is in the second book that I've written, and it's called Keepin Up with Joneses. Hey, me and Toad Mon can't help laughing at a couple living next door. For months now they've been rowing, but I think nature's come up with cure. Fred's a quiet sort of fella, but her's not content with her lot. Her's trying to do yon lasso at way whether Fred can afford it or not. Now them across roads, fresh neighbours, only young with everything new, and he's one of them do-it-yourselfers, all a scratting rain for something to do. When he built a patio out at back, Fred's missus said, "Yo man, don't say him." But Fred's getting on, he can't compete with this here do-it-yourself game. He's put in cupboards and fancily they've got a car now instead of his bike. He's fair worn out trying to keep up with a bank balance nobody'd like. But things come to head this morning when I went corner shop. For what Mrs. Jackson told me, the improvements have come to a stop. Fred's put his foot down good and proper. He says he's not bothered two wins. And I think his wife's in agreement, because her old way is having twins. We heard them rowing to the night through the bedroom wall. Me and Toad Mum, we lay in bed and heard them rowing. And we could hear him saying, "I'm going, I'm fed up with you, I'm going." She says, "Where you going?" He says, "I'm going where women pay men £5 every time they make love." She said, "Well, I'm coming with her." He said, "Why?" She says, "I want to see how you can manage on £10 a month." Fella across the road from us went doctors the other day. We're getting pains in his stomach, and he says to the doctor, "I don't know whether I'm getting an ulcer or not." He said, "Get on bed, let's have a look at them." We gets on bed and he gives him an examination. He says, "Well, Mr. Robinson," he said, "you're pregnant." He said, "I'm what?" He said, "You're pregnant." "I'm pregnant?" He said, "You are." He said, "You'll cause a sensation in the medical world." He says, "I'll cause hell of a row in Hare Street." He says, "I'm not wed." This next one is one mostly for the women, and I've been asked particular to put this in the cassette because it's about my knitting. And everywhere I go they say, oh, say that one about the knitting, because I can't knit, you see. And it's called Get Knitted. Not Get Knotted, Get Knitted. Hey, I'm in hell of a mess with me knitting. I'm telling the note's gone right. My friends sit and knit and their garments fit, but I just end up being beat. First thing I bought were a pattern, a jumper I thought a big grand. It looked so great I just couldn't wait till that needles and wool in my hand. And wool were a right bonny colour, a sort of a turquoisey blue. They were all metric bars, not ounces at all, but lady at shop said they'd do. So that night I studied my pattern. 5th bracket for 38 bust. To cast on with my thumb, took an hour for I'd done. Then I counted them, 100 just. I were off then and nought could hold me. Knit one, purl one, it said. So there were I sitting happily knitting, till the old man said I'm going to bed. Next time I picked up my knitting, I counted my stitches once more. Nah, how it come about I've never found out, they'd increased to 104. So I knit 2 together 4 times a long row. That brought it to 100 again. Then I groaned as I read, 'cause next thing it said was increased to 110. That's how it goes with my knitting. I seem to get everything wrong. When I PSSO, mistakes start to show, and my temper as well afore long. I've ne'er got thang of a buttonhole. I've done all my pattern has said. So I'm taking a tip, I'll stick in a zip, else poop thing over me head. I once knit the old man a pull over, he grey with a little brown flake. But I shouldn't have started, I get right downhearted when it come to dividing for the neck. My friend said, what on earth is it? It's a V-neck pull over, I told her. But seems I've put V where it just shouldn't be, 1 inch away from his shoulder. He always wore it back to front. And if I can rightly recall, to save his face in a crowded place, he'd stand me his back against wall. So now when I'm thinking of knitting, the old man starts shaking his head. So for his peace of mind, I just have to find some other hobby instead. There's a little village in Wales, and on a certain day every year they have a mating custom. And every woman that wants a man goes and hides in the caves, and every man that wants a woman goes and stands outside the caves and makes the signal, woo-woo. And if the women's interested, they answer, woo-woo. And then the men dash in, take all the clothes off and dash in. And my Uncle Dick went down, he'd never been married, you see. And they were having this ceremony, and he thought, I'll have a go at this. So he goes outside first cave and he shouts, woo-woo. Not a dicky bird. He tries another, woo-woo. Nothing. He's done about 7 caves, he was getting fed up without he go back to digs. So he's walking back to digs and he comes across one more cave and he thought, right, I'll have a go here. So he stands outside and he says, woo! And in the distance, woo! Right, off come all his clothes and he run in. And at the inquest, the train driver said, no, what were I going to tell you now? Oh, I know. I was going to tell you about the vet. He were doing a very delicate operation on a dachshund. And phone rang. So he put his pliers down. And it were farmer. And he said, can you come quick? My cat's constipated. He said, give it a pint of castor oil, I'll be round it morning. I can't come now. He says, give it a pint of castor oil, I'll be round it morning. Next morning, vet goes up to the farmer's door. He says, how's your calf? He says, it's not my calf, it's my cat. He said, my God, you've not given it a pound of castor oil, have you? He said, yeah, you told me to. Oh my God, he said, where is it? He says, it's in top field with 6 of its mates. There's 2 digging, 2 filling and 2 looking for fresh ground. So the moral of that story is, if you've got a cat and you give it castor oil, make sure that's getting a big garden. Now, you've heard of the cutbacks in National Health, haven't you? Well, Bolton Infirmary's been affected, you see. And when Prince Philip went looking round the other day, he come across this ward with 3 beds in. And he went up to the first bed and he says to the fella, "And what's the matter with you, my man?" He said, "Piles." He said, "Oh dear." He said, "What's the treatment?" He said, "Wire brush and paraffin." He said, "Is it working?" He said, "We don't know yet." He said, "We've not tried it yet." He said, "Well, keep your chin up." He said, "Have you any ambitions?" He said, "Yes, I'd like to be a jet pilot." He said, "Well, I hope your ambitions are realised." And he went to the next bed and he said, "And what's the matter with you?" He said, "Piles." He said, "Oh dear, wire brush and paraffin?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, keep your chin up." He said, "Have you any ambitions?" He said, "Yes, I'd like to be a very rich man one day." He said, "Well, I hope your ambitions are realised." And he went to the next bed. He said, I suppose you have piles as well?" He said, "No, I've got laryngitis." He said, "Oh dear, what's the treatment?" He says, "Wire brush and paraffin." He says, "Have you any ambitions?" He said, "Yes, to get that wire brush before them other 2. There were a fellow went in public conveniences in Bolton, and he went into one of the toilets and he's just sat down, and all of a sudden he hears somebody come in and go in next stall, and after a minute this little voice floats over at petition. "Hello?" He said, "Hello." He said, "Have you any paper in there?" He said, "No, I've not." He said, "Oh." After another second, he said, "Hello?" He said, "No, what?" He said, "And you're getting about evening news on you?" He said, "No, I've not." "Oh." "Hello?" "No, what do you want?" He said, "Have you got a letter or receipt in your pocket?" He said, "No, I've not, I've told you." "Oh." "Hello?" He said, "No, what?" He said, "Can't change your £10 note." So he said, "Yes." So he put a £10 note under and he shoved 10 £1 coins back. Right, I'm going to do my last dialect one now, and this one is called "A Smell to Hide a Smell." And this one was written when the Avon lady came round, and it set me back to thinking when I were young and we used to go courting and we used to have sweet pea and Devon violets and Californian poppy. Do you remember, girls? And we used to shove it where we thought it did the most good, didn't we? And my mum always used to say, "It's only a smell to hide a smell." So that's what this is called. Yeah, Doreen's changing her image. Her's not same lass as her were. Her wears them contact lenses and there's a permanent wave in her hair. That Avon's all as Cohen. Her paint's every bit to shows. Her's even thought of having operation on her nose. At school they called her Beaky, 'cause her nose turned corners first. But nowadays it's an old Saran 4 inches behind her bust. And her reeks of that expensive scent, like Channel number 5. And here's me with my vapour rub doing my best keep alive. Our Fred's ne'er had a proper meal since her started preening herself. So I asked him round to her house. I included our Doreen as well. And I thought, I'll try some glamour. So I bought a special mud pack. And when I'd done and washed my face, old Mum said, "Put it back." Martha next door set me her. As good with her hands, it's a gift. And I thought, I'll wear my new brassiere, 'cause I needed a bit of a lift. So I put my steak and kidney pud, not stove, to steam for a bit. Then I went upstairs to get ready, determined I'd make an it. Well, I fathered one of them women as comes on th' afternoon telly. all done up like dogs' dinners. I look smashing, but for me belly. Although I diet 4 times a year, my belly seems to win. Hot Playtex girdles under the sun, can't keep that lot in. So there I were in my favourite frock, dolled up and ready for show. I squatted Charlie behind me ears. It does wonders, so they say. My mum always used to tell us, it's the smell to hide a smell. There's nought like a bit of carbolic, and a pair of clean knickers as well. Our Doreen arrived looking gorgeous, with her hair piled up on her head, and with her heels on her feet at her door, her Fred. Thou'd Mum come in looking tired, 'cause he'd been working over. He looked at me, and he kissed me. Well, I felt I were in clover. Hey, lass, he said, that looks bonny. And what's that, it smells so good? I thought, he's noticed me, Charlie. But it were mistaken kidney pud. So I gin her baying perfume by Channel and Mary Quant. I'm baying my mate off Butcher, 'cause I know that's what he'll want. Now this song I'm going to sing is one that I've made up myself, and this came about when we went into Greater Manchester and lost our identity as Lancastrians, and I've been told this is a protest song by the folk people, so I'm protesting because I always say I live in Lancashire, not in Greater Manchester. Here. And it's called the Lancashire Address. I'm a Lancashire lassie, I'm Lancashire born and bred, born of gradely Lancashire folk, Lancashire courted and wed. The long arm of Greater Manchester would grasp me in its fingers, but I'll not change me Lancashire ways. Lancashire custom lingers. I always use my postcode, but this I'd like to stress. Whatever bigger and better means, I've a Lancashire address. When I go on the coach trip to the lovely Yorkshire Dales, or if I'm in my deck chair in picturesque North Wales, I'm proud of where I come from, my accent I'll demonstrate. Ebagum, it's champion, and this I will relay, that I'm a Lancashire lassie, Lancashire born and bred, born of gradely Lancashire folk, Lancashire courted and wed. The long arm of Greater Manchester would grasp me in its fingers, but I'll not change me Lancashire ways. Lancashire custom lingers. I always use my postcode, but this I'd like to stress. Whatever bigger and better means, I've a Lancashire address. Thank you. Thank you. Tell us about my boots in case I forgot.
When shall we go out now? Oh no?